Hello everybody, welcome back to Ties vs. Dyes. Thank you for joining us today. For today's episode, we will be bringing you a reverse tie-dye mandela and spine combo. That will be a reverse dye shirt on a 100% cotton black dyed shirt. And we will be using RIT color remover to achieve our reverse dye effect. And so let's dive right on in. And so as always, well, not as always, but as often as possible, here we are doing our mirror fold for our shirt, and we are just getting those seams lined up. So take note on that and follow along, and this will allow us to begin our complex and headed more towards the advanced fold on the tie-dye spectrum. And that will be achieved by utilizing the mirror folded shirt, how we are doing here. So by doing this, it's going to divide that shirt up into equal and even parts, allowing us to get the most out of our canvas and allowing us to utilize different styles of design and utilize different methods of design on each individual section of the shirt, being the back of the shirt, the front of the shirt, and the sleeves of the shirt tied into one. So this is a very good way to achieve this. As you see me doing here, we are utilizing our binder clips. I highly recommend you get yourself some. If you do not currently use binder clips, I would recommend starting, because it will definitely help your tie-dye game get to where you want it to be, and it will definitely, you'll see results immediately. So I definitely recommend those. I try to never leave home without them, and I definitely try not to tie-dye without them, so I would recommend them for sure. So keep that in mind. And so right here, as you see, what we've done, we've actually opened up that shirt after we utilized the binder clips, and what we're doing now is we're beginning to dive into that mandela fold on the front of the shirt. As you can see, we opened the shirt up, but because of our binder clips, we are still able to utilize the fold that we had made in the beginning of this, and that will allow us to keep that symmetric and evenly spaced look that we are trying to achieve with our reverse dye tie-dye design. So yes, keep that in mind. Very effective and very easy to achieve these more complex and advanced folds when you do it in steps like I am doing here, and when you have it mapped out. And so for most tie-dye shirts, we like to typically map them out with washable marker. For the black shirts, it's a little bit harder to see, so we're kind of just using our mind's eye on this one. And the beauty of using the washable markers and the beauty of using these different designs on a white shirt is that you typically will be able to get it dialed into the fact, or to the point and to the part where you no longer need to map them out, but you can use your mind's eye as we're doing here. So we're just going ahead and shooting that first bind right there, and you want to bind that initial bind with a pretty good amount of strength. You want that to be a pretty bold bind line as well, and this will give you a good starting and stopping point for your shirt, and it will allow there to be just a clear indication and a clear beginning to your mandela or whatever design it is that you may be doing. And so yes, right here you see this illustration that we made, and that's just saying that you want to go ahead and use about 65 to 70% strength. You don't want to give it your all, because you don't want to overbind the shirt. When you overbind it, it makes it harder for the dye to penetrate into the deeper folds of the shirt, and it is just kind of unnecessary. So go 65-70% strength on it, and you'll be good, and you'll be happy with the results that you achieve from that. Anything more, and yes, you'll be overbinding, and that will hinder your dye application process. And anything less, and you will not get very strong separation lines, and you will not get the clear indicators on where one color is stopping and starting. This gets into the dye bleeding and the color bleeding once you do get into your dye application, and it also just makes it harder for the dye to penetrate into those folds. And so keep that in mind when you are binding your shirts. You don't want to overbind them, you just want to bind them just enough. You know, it's like the Three Little Bears. This one's too hot, this one's too cold, this one's just right. That's what you want to do. You want to find what's just right for your bind. And honestly, each different fabric that you come across, each different material consistency is going to be a little bit different. And so what works for one may not necessarily work for the other. That's all just about trial and error. So just keep that in mind, and just know that nothing's set in stone. So there's always room for variation, and there's always room for interpretation and deviation from the project. So yes, just keep that in mind and know that as long as you're moving forward, you're doing the right thing. So yes, keep that in mind. And so right here, what we're doing, we're actually utilizing these 45-degree angles, and we're just working our way up the mandela. And these are going to end up being different sections once we get into our dye application. Each one of those little nubs will be a different color, and that will give us the patterning effect on our mandela once we get into the dye application. So keep that in mind, and I'll point that out again later just so you can have a good reference for it. And so right now, what we're actually doing, we're diving into the spine now. We're folding the spine. And the beauty of using this mirror fold as we did here is that you will be able to just pick it on up and start out with this section without it being affected by the rest of the shirt due to the mirror fold that we utilized. And these binder clips as well, you always want to use those. It's like a second set of hands to where you can achieve a lot of more complex and more complicated and in-depth and more just unique folds when you do utilize them. And so that's why we are a strong component and a big believer in them. So yes, and so again right here we're just putting that initial bind down. Again, you want to always put a really heavy binding on your initial one, because again, that's your stopping and starting point. And so this is where the spine is going to be stopping and starting, and so we want to set down a good heavy bind, wrap it maybe 2 or 3 times and then pull it tight, and really just keep the consistency on that pull. But yeah, maybe let's say we'll call it 7 or 8 for that initial one, and then you could get down to maybe 3 or 4 binds for the rest of them. And so right here, what we're doing, we're actually going with 45-degree angles, and so that will give you a good pattern variation. And so yes, I drew that little illustration right there so you can see what a 45-degree angle is. Go ahead and refer back to that. There's all the different main players in the angle game, I guess you can say there. I drew those just so you can educate yourselves on a little bit of what angles look like, I guess. And so yes, you could leave a message if you want me to send you that PDF of those pictures of those drawings. So feel free, and I will definitely send you one if you request one. So yes, just know that. And so what we're actually doing right here, we're just going back over some of these nubs with the floss. And we're going to come back at the end of this and re-hit all of these different lines with sinew, and that is going to give us a more tighter and a more bold finish. And so what's going to end up happening with a lot of these floss lines that we're using, they're going to end up becoming detail lines. And so right here you see us getting into, we're doing a trip style for the rest of the shirt, the remaining body of the shirt. So that would be the sleeves and the remaining fabric in the canvas. And we are doing this because it will give us a smoky kind of unique and kind of like a galaxy finish at the end of this with the color application for the dye application that we're going to be diving into right now. And so yes, just keep that in mind, and always remember to just kind of go heavy and kind of keep those binding lines and those detail lines as random as you can. Don't overbind it, but don't underbind it also. And then of course you want to go around the bottom of those nubs as tight as you can and really get a good stopping and starting point, because that'll give you a cool looking effect at the end of it. And so just follow along with me here, and you will be happy with the results, and you will be able to not only utilize this style, but you can use all of these methods throughout the different variations and different types of designs and techniques that go with the tie-dye game. Yes, so keep that in mind. All right, so I know that I try not to overly get too deep and dive too deep into the more emotional aspects of things, but it came to me in a thought, and I just wanted to share it with you all, that let's all take a step back and imagine this blank canvas, this black t-shirt blank canvas. It could be compared easily to our lives and to our souls. I think that in the moments of darkness, we need to find the courage and the strength to break through the mundane and the typical everyday hustle and bustle, if you will. And that could be compared to the blank black t-shirt. And when we find the strength to burst through the darkness, it always ends up being something beautiful and something worthwhile at the other end. And I think that that's what we have here. We're going to end up with a very vibrant and very beautiful finished tie-dye project, and I hope that you all enjoy it. This is our, I believe, second time at diving into the reverse dye. We've done it before, but not on this channel, and so these really hold a very important connection with me personally. I very much enjoy doing these shirts. I very much enjoy wearing these shirts, and I think that ultimately this, if I could go in one direction, it would be in this direction. So it's a little bit more tedious, it's a little bit more work, but I think it's most definitely worth the while. It's definitely worth the hassle, and it's kind of cool because we're going to be doing a little chemistry, so you know, stay up and informed with that. And you always want to wear your PPE, so you know, wear your face masks, your eye covering, and gloves, and whatever other covering to cover your clothing with, because you don't want to damage them or ruin them with the RIT color remover, which is what we're going to be using to transform this blank black t-shirt into a beautiful, vibrant Ties vs. Dyes masterpiece. And so special shout out to the RIT color remover. Yes, very much a big believer in it. Definitely works, in my opinion, of course, a lot better than bleach. I would typically rather use this than bleach any day of the week, and I definitely recommend it because not only does it give a really cool impression when you use it, because when you use it, it just shocks the color right out of the shirt right before your eyes. It's a pretty cool thing to see, but it also is easier to rinse out and wash out, and it leaves your dye application process very much so in a way that's going to allow you to be bold and be beautiful and be vibrant as possible. I found that whenever I use bleach, it sometimes is hard to rinse the bleach out. You have to use isopropyl alcohol, and even then it doesn't always get the bleach out in a way that's effective, and so you end up losing some of your vibrance and boldness and brightness to the bleach. And so it's kind of a give and take. And with the RIT color remover, it's somewhat like bleach, but it's a different chemical compound, very technical, of course. And just know that I for sure recommend it. I for sure would rather you all be using this. As far as the chemical smell, it's very similar to bleach or chlorine, but it's ultimately safer, and it's ultimately way more effective, and it leaves your tie-dyes being very bold and, like I said, very vibrant and very bright in a way that the bleach just does not allow for. And so take that into consideration. You know, that's my words of wisdom on this topic, and so I hope that you feel confident in going ahead with it. And just all you need to do once you get through the RIT color remover process is just to thoroughly soak and rinse out your shirt with water, with warm water. Then you work your way to cool water and then back to warm water, just to really saturate the shirt and get all of that chemical out of there. Because once we get into the dye application, you definitely don't want any of that residual chemical buildup to be there, and you want to have it all removed. That way you can get a beautiful and bright shirt the way that you want it to be and the way that you can see it in your mind's eye. And so yes, just take that into consideration. Take that as part of the process, and just know that I'm here with you. Just like I said earlier, you know, this is us all coming through the darkness, and this is you know, how I believe that the nature of every person is. Ultimately, I think that we all have the capacity for darkness, but I think that ultimately we all have a beautiful and bright underlining that really gives contrast and really gives a good vibrant expression of color to the darkness that is the rest of the world. So you and your soul are the color, the world is the darkness, and together we are a reverse tie-dye project. So yes, the world is a reverse tie-dye project. That's the point of this all. So yes, hope you are enjoying the show so far. Let's see what we have going on here for this tie-dye application process. So what we're actually doing here, we're just going around and continuing to lay out those different color dyes. We're trying to kind of keep it to a pattern, a kind of a matching pattern, a more symmetrical pattern. We got the navy blue coming in, and it really was a very good breaking color to the sky blue. And so always try to use the highs and the lows, and as far as the hues of the different colors. So you know, your lighter blues look really good with the darker blues, things like that. And another technique that I'm actually utilizing here is I'm going in a roundabout motion, but every so often you'll see me add like some red where the purple goes, or you'll see me add some yellow where the red goes. And that is actually because these dyes are translucent, and so when you stack them on top of each other, when you start to layer them, you could actually get different hues and different shades and different tones of your color for your dye application. And so that is the reason to the method to the madness for that. And so if you see me, sometimes I'll add and that gets down deeper into how thick are the dyes, how watery or how watered down are the dyes, to where how much you can afford to put or not put on rotating the colors and alternating the colors on your dye application. And so that's all something to keep in mind. But yeah, I think that's what the key takeaway for me was, is that at the end of the day, they're all translucent, and so you could stack them and you'll see each color through the last. And so that's how you get those different unique color combos and color saturation effects, by stacking those and layering them and just experimenting with them as much as possible. And so, but yeah, notice here how I am trying to keep that design, that pattern going. And ultimately it takes us into this is the finished product right here. This is the mandela for the reverse dye tie-dye project. And let me know what you think about it in the comments. Feel free to let us hear your questions and concerns. Feel free to like and subscribe. So thank you for your time, though. This is going to be the end of the episode today, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate your patience. We hope that you're out there tie-dyeing, tie-dye the world, and we'll see you next time. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.